All right, so what's happening to this graph? You're taking that exponential function and you're doing what to it? The plus 3 on the outside of the function is? You're taking your parent function and you're doing what to this? This is your vertical shift, so it's going up 3. So everything gets moved up 3. That includes this asymptote, so it's 1, 2, 3. And so our graph looks like this. And what if we have the transformation occurring inside our function? Now we have this inside part. It's in the power. It's applied directly to the x. So this is going to be a horizontal function or a horizontal transformation. Are we going to go to the left or to the right 3? It's always what value of x will give you a 0 inside here, so it's -3, so to the left 3. So here we'll take our original function that looks like this, again the parent function, and we're going to shift everything to the left 3. So 1, 2, 3, so this point gets moved here, and then everything adjusts accordingly. Right, finally, the last transformation to take a look at is going to be a negative. Okay, so if we look at something like this, where we have some negative multiplier out front, okay, so -2 times 3 to the power of x. Here, this negative is going to take our parent function, and it's going to reflect it vertically across the asymptote. So the asymptote doesn't get changed at all. Actually, so for up here, we still have this horizontal asymptote. Okay, so there's no change in the asymptote. There's no vertical adjustment to it. But this graph gets reflected across that, and so it's going to look like this function. And so this is the negative or the reflection applied. It reflects it across or vertically across that asymptote. All right, so we looked at each of these transformations individually, so let's take a look at, or actually let me just talk really quickly about domain and range here. So the domain for this one is -∞ to +∞. That's going to be true for all of these functions. But what is our range? What's the lowest possible y value here? The lowest y value is 3 and extends all the way up to infinity. So whatever your vertical shift is, that's going to change the range. When we look at this horizontal shift, the domain will always be all real numbers, so -∞ to +∞. The range on this, the lowest y value is 0, the highest is infinity. So the range, there is no shifting. The horizontal asymptote is still at y = 0, so that's your critical point for this range. Okay, finally, the reflecting, the domain does not get affected at all. It's still from -∞ to +∞ for the x's. However, the range does get affected here. The range, now the lowest range, when you have this negative multiplier, you're going to have a -∞ in the front of your range, and it'll extend all the way up to, but not including, the asymptote 0.